Hi, Srdjan, and welcome to the Digging Trail podcast.
Hello, Istok. Good to have you.
Yeah, so this is a next frontier in our podcast. So the first one we are doing on the road in the studio. So great.
Happy to be the first one.
Yeah, and I think Belgrade is the perfect place to do this for the first time. So when I was talking to 815 Labs guys about talking about the next person to interview, they told me they listened to one of your presentations. I think it was World Aviation Festival, right?
Yeah, in October in Amsterdam.
Yeah. And we wanted to say, okay, let's move, because in the first 3 episodes we had 3 UX leaders, experts, even mentors, teachers. And we said, okay, a lot of theory, a lot of concepts, a lot of good things about the UX. But now I want to talk to a person who maybe doesn't have a specific UX background, but is dealing with a lot of UX challenges, digital challenges in practice. And when 815 Lab guys mentioned your name, I said, wait, I remember this guy.
Yeah, we met in 2019.
Yeah, we met here in Belgrade 2019, and you started, I think it was, you were a mobile expert, or at that time?
Yeah, I joined the company in September 2019 as a mobile app development manager, or actually a product manager for the mobile app, and it was a greenfield project basically that we started from scratch at that time.
And 5 years later, you are?
Yeah, 5 years later, I progressed. Project went well, so basically I was promoted to head of e-commerce, and now I'm dealing with a lot of more stuff than just mobile app and UX, but like you said, it's a big topic for us.
So head of e-commerce in Air Serbia means digital channels, sales, also the digital acquisition part, marketing stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So we are dealing a lot with development, specifically for our website and mobile app. We are also responsible for acquisition, performance marketing, meta searchers, working with OTAs, also indirect online sales. Doing a lot of support for the users of the digital channels. Also, since recently we are having analytics inside of our apartment, specifically digital analytics. And of course, we are working cross-functionally with a lot of colleagues from, let's say, PSS, from finance when it comes to the payments. So it's very interesting and challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. And if I remember from 2019, and Air Serbia is not unique in this, I think all, let's say, traditional airlines that I work with, the main goal typically is to increase the share of direct digital sales. Yeah, that's still the same?
Pretty much. Yeah, basically, you want to have as much as possible direct distribution, basically to decrease the cost. Of course, with NDC, that's a little bit changing. You can now have, indirect sales through OTA or traditional agencies also at a low cost, but NDC is growing slowly. And of course, you want to have a digital channel because you want to have a direct relationship with your customer. That's always the best, because we are in the service industry.
Yeah, and we'll get to the stuff that you did on the digital front. But maybe before we get there, I was mentioning the guest that we had before, who had very strong UX background, let's say, expertise in the UX area. But I think your background, when we are talking, and as far as I understand, is more like, let's say, we are similar in that it's more broad generalist part. So UX is one of the things that you have to know about, but as a head of e-commerce now, as you said, you have a more broad skill set. But if I'm not mistaken, your background is from engineering, right?
Yeah. I studied industrial engineering management, operations, so a lot of logistics, quality control. But actually, this area of study has a lot of things with UX, that you can use. And especially, you get a really broad knowledge and in areas like finance, how to improve quality, how to track and analyze, processes, how to design processes and improve. And, if we analyze, for example, the booking process or checking process, whatever. Basically, we are creating a self-service process for the passenger, something that would travel agent who is expert in this area of business do for them. Now we want to enable passengers to do it, easily by themselves. So, that a lot of.
And I think not only with that, because like you said, that is an engineering problem, an engineering mindset. You break it down by steps, and then you try to make each step as smooth as possible in the final process. But if you look at it as from a broader picture, at least that was my experience. I always looked at e-commerce as an engineering challenge because it's in a nutshell, it's a math problem, right?
It is.
So you have like three equations, which is like number of visitors, conversion rate, average order, and it gives you the final result.
Exactly. And these things are like, always very connected. Like, you can change a little bit conversion rate, but maybe your average order value will drop, or maybe you can improve both. And like, if you can create this in Excel, like, like a math problem, then basically you can easily prioritize, like, what are the areas that you want to work on when actually start designing.
And also, if you treat it as a math problem, I think the next logical part is to measure each part.
Of course.
So then the analytics came into the picture, and you measure and try to optimize and see how the numbers move. But you said, okay, you started as a, let's say, expert for the mobile, or responsible for the mobile app, and now you prolonged. But one thing that I see basically when I work with airlines, I said you had like a huge airlines that have expertise in different areas for each part, even in sourced UX development, things like that. And then Air Serbia case is, let's say, a mid-sized airline when you have like a smaller team. So you guys have to manage a lot of things. Maybe if you explain a little bit about the setup, how you guys work, and especially the UX part. And then we will talk about the mobile part.
Sure. So we have 9 people in our e-commerce department, but like I said, we are working closely with the PSS, which is a little bit bigger department and also has a lot of knowledge about the digital, about the reservation system, everything that we need to connect to, and that is affecting basically the booking process, check-in process, and other things that we do on the web. But regarding the UX, actually there is 3 people that are working on this area. I have one product manager in my team who is working on the website and also on the mobile app, and I have one person who is doing kind of a support work, like a help desk, because one of the things that, for example, we did in our mobile app, we are having direct communication channels where you can send us feedback, and then we talk directly to the customers.
You mean feedback also for the UX in general, not just the technical customer
technical part, UX, like, people are reaching to us and asking all kind of questions. Maybe something is not clear, maybe they have a problem or a challenge, whatever. And why we did that, actually, because even though we have a great collaboration with our call center and people from social media, they're also feeding us with a lot of info. We wanted to shorten this communication cycle. So actually, I hired internally one lady who is like, for I think 30 years almost in the company. She knows everything, worked in many different departments. Like you said, we are basically getting a lot of feedback from the people. And like, this is because usually you working in airline on so many areas, you don't have a lot of time maybe to interview people on a daily basis, like, which is very important. We are doing that, but, on a much slower cadence. But we have a daily communication with our users.
No, but that's great. Like you said, getting this feedback, because typically what I see again is like this customer feedback processes or the responses come in airline environment to some other department, and they rarely get to the digital team, which again is trying to solve a lot of these things. And with mobile, especially if you go into this huge new flow self-service, I think listening to the feedback firsthand or having it in your department, it's great.
Exactly. And I think users, they really love it, basically because they usually don't expect that they will get an answer so quickly. And when they do, they are like, very open to continue communicating. And actually we use this channel to hire some users for like, testing when we have some design before it goes to production. Of course, we always do some usability testing with the Figma clickable prototypes. So like, this channel actually also serves to hire like, the real users.
So you get the people to test your Figma prototype through the same channel.
Basically they reach to us, we help them to solve some problem, and then basically we ask them if they would like at the point when we have maybe some new feature which should go to development, if they would be willing to do a usability testing with us. And like, they're usually very happy to do that. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea, and I think like use it as a customer service interaction also for future improvement, because I think people really like when their opinion matters, right? So when they know that somebody's listening and that they will use their feedback.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's go, 1-2 step back. So we said, 2019, we met, you were hired for the mobile app project, and 2024 you presented this success of mobile app. What happened in between, or how did the project go? And then we will talk a little bit about the final results.
Sure. So, okay, when I joined the company, I didn't know a lot about the airlines, so it was very challenging for me, to learn all about these processes, backend systems, how everything works. But, it was also very, very extremely interesting. So that's why I'm here after 5 years. But, so what we wanted to do some custom development, because pretty much at that time, all the solutions that were on the market were pretty much the same. And we wanted to change
off-the-shelf product, mobile booking engine product, airline.
Exactly. What most of the airlines would do, they would create some native mobile app, which would maybe have some native features. But then, for example, for the booking, which is like you said, revenue generating, the most important thing would be just the web booking engine through the web view. And what was for me the biggest problem is that all these booking engines were designed for the desktop and then customized for the mobile. So they are not mobile first design, and that usually never works pretty well, because mobile is very specific. Small screen, you have a really long and complex process where you need to input a lot of data, a lot of opportunity to make mistakes, and that's why we have a really low conversion rates on mobile web. And we wanted to change that on our mobile app. And the great thing was that we really had a strong support from our management, who understood that we want to work directly with users to do a lot of UX design, which was not the case prior, and to do some custom development. And there was not too much pressure to deliver it quickly, although we did it because we delivered in different phases. So we didn't create the whole app and launch. We first created check-in with the payment and ancillaries, then we added native booking and continue working like that. So what we in the beginning what was the big challenge is actually finding the right partners.
Okay.
And for the development company, we definitely understood that we need to work with a tech company who understands airline, who understands systems, because just learning the language and the APIs, it's huge challenge for someone who didn't work with that. But for the UX, we didn't have a lot of, let's say, choice on the market, for the UX companies who are working specifically with the airline industry. Now, there is some companies who are very interesting, like our sponsors, but we basically, created RFP process.
And you have to teach them.
Exactly. So, but what was very important is that during the RFP process, we had some, task that they need to do, and we picked the one who actually showed us that they have a great process. They're using design thinking, and they presented how they would approach with all the things that you need to do in UX, from the workshops with stakeholders, discovery, tree maps, and things that you would do, card sorting. We basically knew, okay, we can teach these guys industry. They will teach us basically how to do UX, and we were working with this partner for a long time. We also created a website with them. So it was a challenging, I would say that it takes at least 6 months of daily work with an agency to onboard them, to our industry. But it worked really well, I think.
And you said, and I think this is important, that you say, okay, we don't want to have, let's say, off-the-shelf product, which is just like a copy-paste but mobile-friendly version of the main flow, but we want a completely different flow thinking for the mobile.
Exactly.
So we want to build mobile experience from scratch. What was maybe when you started building new mobile, let's say, experience, what were the key learnings during this process? What is the key difference when you compare it to the desktop, or let's say the typical booking flow and airline process?
Well, the biggest challenge, I think, is that when you design for the desktop, you have even on the laptop, 14-inch laptop, you have a lot of screen space, and you can put a lot of information there, and people will be able to understand it and to read it if you're not using a lot of airline lingo. But on mobile, that's very different. I mean, you need to simplify things as much as you can, And that was a big challenge because, for example, we are used to present a lot of airline specific info to the passengers, like maybe, I don't know, fare basis, which is really not important for the end user. They don't care about it. But for us as airline people, we are used to thinking about this, and for us this is important info. So we also have to, when we created these simplified screens, to let's say negotiate and convince our colleagues who are also stakeholders in this process that this is a good approach. And of course, doing usability tests with users and being able to show them the feedback was also very helpful.
Can good design visuals replace, like you said, the words that you would have a lot of words typically on the web?
They can. I will give you just one example. For example, when you make a search and go to the flight results page, the most important page when I actually need to find the product or the flight that I want to buy, most airlines would do on the desktop and also on the mobile like a ribbon when you have a prices for 3 days before or after, which is a good thing because you're giving the passenger opportunity maybe to choose a better date with a cheaper price. But usually these ribbons, they have a lot of info, what is the day, what is the date, date, month, the price, the currency, and it just adds a lot of content to the screen. And also you have opportunity just to have maybe 6 days that you will present. So what we did, and I'm not sure if we are the only one, maybe there are some OTAs who are also using that, we actually use the histogram. And histogram has just what is the date, what is the day that you're looking at, but and it showing you relatively what is the price compared to these days on the next dates. And what is the great thing with the histogram is actually that with less words you're giving more price info to the passengers, because all the reservation systems, they return you, when you ask price for 1 day, they will return you price for the 20 days. So 10 days prior to this day and 10 days after this day. And with a very simple visual presentation, you are able to give more info and more choice to your passengers. And actually what we saw with analytics is that actually 50% of the people who make a search, they move the histogram and go to other date and then continue booking. So this is something that is actually helping us to give opportunity to passenger to find the correct date, correct price, and to complete the booking. It's affecting conversion rate significantly.
And this is, like I said, I think it's a great example of this whole UX, CRO optimization, however you want to call it. Is okay, let's come with a problem, try to test it, and then even see it in data. Is this something, for example, histogram or some other case that's, you said you tried prototypes and Sigma, things like that you would test with users before implementing? Or?
Exactly, yeah.
And so, the feedback that you get was that it's much easier with them to...
Yeah. But we didn't get the idea from the users to do this. They don't know it's possible. Actually, we also needed to understand the technology, what are the capabilities of the reservation systems, which are also... how to put it, constraints, but sometimes we are actually not using all the possibilities that we have, and when we understood that we have this opportunity, we explained this to our design agency. They came with a visual solution and presentation, and then we tested it with the users basically by giving them a task. We want to put them in a mindset where they're looking, for example, to the cheapest price. They have a flexibility. They don't need to travel on a certain date because we know this is often the situation. And just looking if they will scroll, if they will understand what they need to do with this histogram. And of course, we got some feedback. In the first attempt, it wasn't maybe perfectly designed, but then we of course always do some rework, some redesign, and before we go to production. So when it went to production, I think it worked perfectly. We didn't have to make a lot of changes specifically on this feature.
Okay. One thing that I wanted to talk to, because I think the case that you presented at the Aviation Festival was the mobile page optimization on the mobile app. And there you talked about, okay, we reduced the number of input fields I think from
It was
12
specifically for the payment page.
for the payment page. I think it was from 12 to 4 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is, and when I came here, first my idea was to come with a car. Then I said last minute, let's go with the flight. I booked a flight through your app, and it was really simple experience. So congrats on
Happy
that.
to hear that.
And this is one of the, let's say, way of thinking about it. Okay, let's reduce the number of, especially on mobile, the input fields. Yeah. So on the mobile page, that was one big thing. But how do you decide how you can, which of the 12 you scrapped to came to 4? What was the process behind that?
So, okay, we focus specifically when we analyze the funnel booking, specifically for the mobile web. There are like, two areas. I think this is probably for the most airline true. Passenger screen and the payment screen have the highest drop off. And
because they have the forms to input data.
Exactly,
right?
very big forms. It's not just like, picking ancillary or something like that, which is relatively easy, it's straightforward. And you can lose like, up to 50% of passengers or even more on these screens. And like, payment screen was specifically interesting because these are the people who found the flight, who added ancillaries, everything. They just needed to pay basically to get the service they want. And we were very interested basically why we are losing so much people. And we really had to dig deep into analytics. We also analyzed some screen recordings and things like that on the web prior to having mobile app. And what we learned actually, and by also interviewing people, is that a lot of people, they because payment info is very sensitive data, they're afraid maybe they will input incorrect data. So they would give up and decide maybe to go on the web, but maybe they will go and buy some competitor's ticket or to OTA. But there was a lot of situations, and we can see this from the analytics in the gateway, payment gateway, that there is a lot of people who are actually making a mistake and payments getting declined because you input wrong card number or date or name on the card, whatever. So we tried to simplify this. We couldn't really do card scanning. Because card scanning at that time didn't work very well, and I'm not sure if it's working right now. It's not like a passport. You don't have machine readable part on the card. You need to do character recognition, and because cards are in different colors, it's very hard to recognize all the data. We also didn't want to do for the returning customers, saving credit cards, because what we learned that people are willing to save cards in the app they're using on a daily basis.
Yeah, this is not frequent enough.
Food ordering, card ride sharing, and things like that. But people on average travel maybe 2 times or 3 times per year. So why would they save card? Because maybe they're not always using the same airline. So that was also not a solution. And basically we try to understand how can we decrease the number of the fields, basically to make it very easy for them to fill this data. And then again, we also needed to analyze what are the technical capabilities. And we learned that basically for a bank to process a transaction, they only need a card number and they only need your CVV number. They don't even need expiry date. They don't need a name on a card. So this is completely unnecessary data that can be useful maybe for fraud checks and prevention. But I even know some airlines that are actually asking you just for a card number and CVV, not even for expiry date on a card. And that works. And of course, we tested this. It worked pretty well. Users were basically happy that they can fill it in maybe less than a minute or 2 minutes, whatever. And then there was another challenge basically because we are mostly using external hosted payment pages from the different gateways for different currencies. If we can implement this on a gateway side. And of course it was possible. It took some work, design work and coding. But we were able basically to use 2 different pages in mobile app, one for Serbian currency, one for all other currencies, and they looked totally the same. They were customized to fit in the app, the look and feel and everything that is there.
And the results that you got from this optimization? Yeah,
the results were I can't really say exact numbers, how much we improved conversion rate, but it was significant. It was multiple times better than it was previously. And what I can say is that our acceptance rate for the payments in the mobile app is top of the industry, best of the airlines. It's above 90%, which is like, really, really good. So it means that people who attempt to pay actually succeed.
Great. And one thing when it comes to mobile, so you said, okay, payment page, less is more, right? Less steps, more simple, less friction, less possibility for mistakes, easier. But is this less is more true for all of the things? Because one thing that I see on going back to, we are trying to replicate the desktop booking flow to mobile is, okay, in desktop we had like steps with a lot of information, but while in mobile, oftentimes you just need like few more steps, but like simple decisions because people are doing it with the time.
Exactly.
Is this something that you feel as well, or did you implement this logic during the mobile?
Yeah, we did. Actually, I think what we always think is that actually the goal is to reduce number of steps, which is not true. Sometimes you can increase the number of steps of, let's say, screens that you need to pass. But if you make it easier for the passenger, conversion will go up, because actually what is important is to decrease the effort needed to complete the booking. It doesn't matter if it's like 8 screens or 10 screens. If I can go faster and more easily through 10 screens, that will improve conversion. So like for example, passenger screen, very important. Like you need to input a lot of data, and this is actually where we focus. Like this is very important thing in UX, to focus on extreme users, not on the average user. Average user doesn't exist. And for us, for example,
what is an extreme user?
So for example, extreme users for us of the mobile app was a person who is buying ticket for his family.
Okay.
Let's say 4 passengers. And when you analyze your own flow, you're creating ticket for yourself and you can do it easily. But when you try to do it for 4 passengers, to input 4 passports, that's very, very hard and takes a lot of time and significantly increases the number of error. And if you, for example, input your name incorrectly of the passenger, it has some costs, and it's very bad situation to put user info into. So what we did there on mobile is because mobile has a camera, we are used to use cameras on our mobile. We created a document scanning feature that was very, very important for us. And basically you can just make a picture of your passport. It has a machine readable part there, or even your national ID, if you can travel with national ID. And basically the backend server will return, pre-populate all the fields, which are editable. Maybe sometimes scanning doesn't work. But what we learned is that success rate is really good. People, let's say 70% of our passengers are using this feature. So it really helps them to complete this step. And this is what we also see in analytics, that the drop-off rate on the passenger screen on mobile app is significantly lower than on mobile web. And what we also did there is actually, once you create a passenger, you can easily save it in your profile. So next time when you're booking, we will first present you all the passengers in your profile. You can just select them. We have the passport info. Or if you want to add a new passenger, you can definitely scan a new document, or type it if you prefer that.
Okay, no, good example. And if you think, I think the biggest click from the mobile app is when people would start preferring it even to the desktop, because let's say the user experience, like some of the things can be easier on mobile.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you said, things like that, scan,
exactly,
doing the things. Do you see any of these moments happening already with your app, or?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the growth was pretty stable, but not very fast, because we are not doing anything paid promotion, because like I said, we were doing releases in the phases, so it was never actually a completed app that we should push through. But users who try it, they usually come back. And what we learned is actually that mobile app is a great sales channel for the most loyal and frequent passengers. So it's working really well. And also when compared to the web, there is many differences compared to the desktop, but because 60-70% of people are looking for the tickets on the mobile, a lot of these things can be applied to the mobile web, and this is something that we will definitely work on in the future. You can add even to the web document scanning feature when you're using that on a mobile phone through a browser.
That's a good thought. What about the things maybe for future plans, again, that are, I would say, maybe even more relevant for mobile, like this post-booking flows, self-service flows, things like that, marketing automation, combining it with that. Are you looking into that?
Yeah,
I see you're smiling.
Definitely. That's a kind of when we made a success with the booking and mobile app grew significantly. Like, you know, it's a significant chunk of the online sales right now. You learn that there is a lot of people now who need to refund. I mean, there is always 1% of people who need to maybe change date or do a refund or something like that, some post-booking process. But as you grow, this percentage in absolute numbers become a huge number of people. So this is what we're going to focus on in the next year. Definitely, we want to enable self-service refunds. Also change flight dates. And we want to add loyalty program. This is something new that we are working on, not specifically my department. We have a new department who gonna create a Air Serbia loyalty program, probably next year. Not sure when we're gonna launch it, but it will be very important for us to incorporate this in mobile app, because like I said, we have people who are traveling often. We know they will collect a lot of points, and we want to enable them basically to combine points and regular payments to complete bookings.
Oh, interesting. Maybe if you go back, when you said to the process, when you started, you said, okay, we wanted to have an agency, but not an agency. You use the word partner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they bring strong UX know-how. You guys, you said you will bring the industry and expertise, the airline industries, but the UX design, digital know-how, that's what you are looking for. And also, if I'm not mistaken, or if I understood it correctly, you said, okay, all that comes with this agile design thinking things testing wireframes, being agile, integrating users. What do you think is, let's start first with what is the biggest challenge in this kind of setup? Let's say when you work with a partner, or how does it become a partner, not like just a vendor?
Yeah. So, first for us, during the RFI, when we were talking with several agencies, from Serbia and other countries, we created a task basically just to test how they're taking. We didn't expect that anybody will come with perfect solutions. We knew that we're gonna have to teach them a little bit, but we wanted to see the process and how much effort they put it, and how much they are motivated basically to learn about our industry, because it's very different than typical e-com retail, which is very similar, we found one agency that really stood up, with how they presented, how they approach AI, UI, and all the processes and everything. They were very eager to work with us, and to tackle complex problems, because they're working also in other complex industries. But what was also very important for us, basically, because we wanted to create this partnership, not just to hand over requirements. You return designs, we give you a few comments, you maybe fix something, and that's it. That usually doesn't work really well. So we were also looking if this potential partner has a high fluctuation of people, which is very common in IT industry, but can be a big problem, because we need a partner to keep the knowledge they have in-house, or we're gonna have to teach them over and over again, which can take a lot of effort.
Great point from my work when I was in your shoes, managing IT marketing. We worked basically with two agencies. One was the marketing agency, the other ones at that time, although I hate the word now, is digital performance. So one was for bigger branding, bigger campaigns. The other one was more PPC campaigns and execution. And one had a very stable team, and the other had a lot of fluctuation. And then through the time you realize, okay, I cannot teach these people every half year the same things, and you want to build with them. So that thing I think is it's a great point, but also not that easy to achieve in today's.
It's not that easy to achieve, but you can maybe estimate by looking at the company culture, how they are working. Are they a UX factory, just producing some screens, or maybe how the offices look, and everything. So we actually found a partner who has a very stable team. There were some changes during the few years, but of course they also have a good process of documenting everything. And for example, what they told us is when they have a, let's say, small atomic team that is working with a client on a specific products, from time to time, they assign additional team members from other teams just to learn a little bit about it. So tomorrow there is maybe some people will leave. They have something who will jump in on the project and who will already know about this client and industry. So this was, I think, very important, finding a stable partner who is very motivated to do a lot of work, hard work. But yeah, it worked really well.
Okay, and if you go back to the UX, because after all we are talking about Airline UX Series, and if you're not an UX expert, like I said, if you're more on a generalist, getting this external knowledge, like through a partner, like you said, it's critical. And at the end, what would you say it's like a key point that really makes it a success?
You mean from the partner side? How can
from both, how you integrate this, like if you have an external, if UX design per se is not an internal process, it's external, it's a partnership, but having this UX vision, how you internalize it, maybe like
there is a way. It can be a bit challenging, but so what, for example, we did with our partner when we started working on a mobile app, because there is a lot of stakeholders for different departments who need to have some saying, like finance, marketing, PSS. We have actually created the workshops with our agency and internal stakeholders, where we would basically talk about different things, analyze existing flows, maybe show some proposal of the screens which are still not very tested with the users, but discuss different topics. And this was actually great because this served two purposes. It really helped us to onboard the agency, so it was everything on the e-com shoulders. A lot of colleagues helped us to teach them important things. But it also helped us basically for our external stakeholders to understand what is the UX, that it is a complex process. It takes a little bit time, and that we are not we are e-com smartest guys. We're gonna tell you how this has to look and work. It will be a collaborative process. So this was I think great. It was very fun for everyone, and I think it really helped us to get a lot of support from other departments, because they have a lot of operational work, a lot of projects on their own, and when we were asking for help, for advice, they were always very eager to get in and to evolve. And I think it was exciting for everyone.
No, that's great. And like I said, if you go back to the one point that you made, once you add the part where you're even listening to the customer feedback, and then they provide this along with the data, then exactly. I think it's a full picture. And how
exactly. That was perfect.
Okay, maybe one thing that we can also tackle is the typical challenge that most, let's say, airlines with a long background, with complex distribution and models faces the legacy part of the tech distribution, sometimes even e-com booking part. How do you look at it so it's not as a constraint, but let's say that you can still do a lot of exciting stuff around? How do you look at this challenge, or how do you tackle this challenge?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Tough one.
It's something
to look at positively.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are definitely,
because you manage on the mobile part. You manage
exactly. I mean, first, okay, you have to understand that you have some limitations that are present for everyone in our industry, and of course, you can't really make it as simple as end users would like to. So yeah, that can maybe sometimes get you frustrated, but it is what it is. But I like you said, these reservation systems, they're old and very complex systems, and maybe even the first e-commerce systems, because even 40 years ago, some agent from Australia could access our reservation system and sell a ticket. It's a digital commerce, So the bad thing is they didn't maybe change fast enough, but they are changing, and improving. But what is, I think, the biggest challenge right now is just understanding what are all the capabilities. Because, like, you know, let's say reservation system, it's sitting with a PSS, and we people from the e-com, maybe, I mean, for sure, we don't know everything that we need to do because it's extremely big and complex system. So, like, you know, and of course, our colleagues can't really teach us everything that we should know. Like, you know, just how to set up a new API user in a system is extremely complex. Like, you know, there are different different capabilities that one end user can do or can't do. And it's done through some keywords.
And
like,
then there is the cost component that you also need, how it's...
Yeah, exactly. How you're gonna make the queries, like, you know, are you gonna cache prices or something like that? So there is a lot of things that you can do maybe on top of the system. But what I did, for example, in the beginning, and I like all my people to do when I hire maybe something new who is not from the airline industry, we always go and complete like, you know, agent training or for the training for the people in the call center, because then you learn the interface and the process and also the language of the airline, like, you know, what does the PNR mean, what is, like, you know, EMD and things like that, fare basis, like, you know, what are these signs all mean, and that basically helped me and my people who are more on the technical side to dig deeper. And you can go, for example, to your reservation system developer portal. You can find info about every API. And, like, you know, when you know the process, you can probably understand that better. And you will be able to explain that better to your maybe UX partner, or even maybe to your development company who also doesn't know everything, of course, about your reservation system and how the processes work. So it's a hard, but it's also very interesting. Like, you know, it's a never-ending game. I mean, I know people who are working in a company on these things, like, you know, for 10, 15 years, and they're still learning what is possible and how maybe to overcome some limitations.
Good. Now we talked a little bit about challenges, and a lot of them are from, let's say, origin from the past.
Yep.
But maybe if we end with more futuristic look, what is the thing that excites you personally most about the future? Or not necessarily even, let's say, Air Serbia or project you can talk, but let's say the digital, the things that are on the horizon. What are the things that excite you, that you like to either learn more about or you would like to try at your work?
Look, there is a lot of fun, but I would say that, like, you know, it's a hype, but I'm very interested, you know, to see how it will work out. This is, like, you know, chatbots and generative AI. For me, like, you know, it's very interesting, like, you know, and we are working actually on a chatbot, like, you know, very slowly because we want to do it right, and we will start, like, the mobile app with some simple use cases and then build on top of it. But, like, you know, I'm wondering, will we be able to create a conversational interface that will actually mimic the physical agent, who will, like, you know, not ask for, like, you know, really structured data for a passenger to input, but maybe be more like conversational, ask you questions, understand where you would like to travel if you are, for example, in, like, you know, this research discovery phase, to give some recommendations and basically to help you to complete the booking, which is extremely hard, like, you know, because you need to have, like, you know, all the metadata about all the destinations where you're traveling and, like, you know, how you're going to present to the people, like, you know, if I'm a family person and want to go to the seaside, maybe I'm looking for a children-friendly hotel, while if I'm going maybe with my girlfriend, I'm, like, you know, in 20s, something like that, I want to party like crazy. So it will be very challenging, but I think, like, you know, definitely very interesting, and probably will get there sometimes. I'm not sure when, but...
No, sure. No, I think, I don't know, it's an idea to start. I did some project pilots in the past. It was like a first step for that is, and you have a great tool now with the mobile, with the website, just collect feedback. And the typical problem that you have with collecting this feedback, it comes in some written form. And in the past, you had to categorize, you have to read, somebody person had to do that, and this is like a job that AI can do. And it's not talking to customer yet, it's just analyzing, but then contextualizing, categorizing, understanding, it's the first step. And I think here you can learn, and then you expand it to the bigger, and it's like more, do you understand it? Like build this internal know-how that you add to the, let's say, make it a smart
This
AI
will
system.
probably be, I think, new area in UX, basically people who are designing these interactions. Like, we already have interaction design, but it's mostly like, how you interact with the screen, with the input fields. Because like, as you know, on mobile, people are like, not reading a lot. They're just like, scanning the screens.
Yeah.
And now we are going in direction when we need to talk and they need to give you a lot of text. You need to read, understand. So it will have to be very fluid and interesting and relevant. And like, it will be probably a combination of someone who knows technology and someone who knows to write really well, like, the copy and to understand the psychology of the people. It will be probably an interesting role for some people in UX who want to try something new.
Sounds exciting. At the end, a question that I often ask my guest, and I see you are, let's say, very passionate about these things and a lot of areas, a lot of things. How do you keep up with these things? How do you learn, let's say, about the new things, the e-commerce, all these things? There was a sigh.
It was a little bit easier before.
It was more time.
When
you come from more specialist to a manager role, right?
Exactly. Now you have so many areas, and like, even when you finish your work, you're still thinking about it when you go home. But in general, following podcasts like yours, and even some maybe more specific, like, there is a lot of content on YouTube, like, interviews from the people, from great companies, from startups in Silicon Valley, like, from VC funds, like, you can really find a lot of content, like, either written blogs or like, recordings, whatever ticks your box. The problem is like, how you're gonna process all of that. So one thing then I do basically when I go to the work, and from the work I play something in a car, like, you usually get traffic in a traffic jam, and maybe I listen to some podcasts and something like that. And in the evening, like, if I have time, I would read something. So usually like that. But I think when you reach a management position, you usually have to interact with a lot of people, internally and externally. There is, of course, a lot of vendors reaching to us, offering some services, and just by interacting with them, probing them, asking them questions, how they solve some problems, and like, with some of them you continue working, with some of them not, you'll really learn a lot, like, so it's basically every time you have opportunity to learn something, you need to grab it. And
I agree today. Like, I think the problem is not where to get know-how, because or knowledge, it's a lot of sources. It's more how you moderate that, how you select the proper one, how you define value, and then how you process it and verify.
I know a lot of people, what they're doing now, I didn't try it, but I will have to. They use ChatGPT, basically summarize this blog post. I know this is a good blogger, he has a lot of things, but this is too long. I don't have time or energy to process it. Like, just summarize. Now, I'm not sure if that's good or not. I will try it and I can get back to you, like, if it works.
We'll see. I hope ChatGPT doesn't summarize our conversation to one line, because I think you shared a lot
Maybe there will be a few bullet points.
I think you shared a lot of interesting things. No, really, always, like I said, to me, doing this job, doing relationship with people in our industry, it's amazing to see people start, grow, progress, like your journey. And thanks for sharing it with us today.
Of course.
And
I think the work that you and your colleagues are doing in many different areas is very important, because we don't have UX schools. Nobody learns that at school. Like, you would either study traditional design or maybe some IT or maybe some management, and then you need to learn on the work. And basically, in order to get to some work, you need to have some portfolio to play with something. So like, having these interesting podcasts and blogs, this is like, very, very important, I think, for this line of work.
Thanks. And like I said, if I go to the ChatGPT example, okay, summarizing not, but often I look at this podcast and the others, when people learn to it, you say, okay, from a 40-minute conversation, if there is one idea that lights the bulb and say, okay, this is interesting, maybe I can try this. It's worth the while. And I think, at least when I talk to you, some of the things that on the mobile thing, I got like several of those. So thanks for sharing. And like I said, it's first time on the road. Hope you do it again. If not here, summer close.
we're gonna meet at some conference for sure.
That's good. Thank you, Srdjan. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Istokit. It was a pleasure.